Today we're going to learn Shabbat Daf Kuf Yud Tet. It's one of those dafim that you've definitely heard some things from, or at least it's likely you've heard some of the things in today's daf. Probably not most of them, but there's definitely things here and there you're going to say, oh, I know that story, or I know that line. Okay, we're going to start with, it's always fun when that happens. We're going to start with the top of Kuf Yud Tet Amud Aleph. We ended with one rabbi saying, we were in a list of people saying, please reward me because I do the following. And one of those things we started with, because I keep Shalosh Sudot on Shabbat. And then we talked about, did this mean that many people weren't keeping Sudah Shlishit? And then we had a bit of a problem because then the list included things like tzitzit and tefillin, which we assume most people do. Although I wanted to remind you that when we talked about tefillin a little while back, we saw that there was a time when people really weren't wearing tefillin generally. It was very expensive and it was hard to get. And tzitzit also, theoretically, you don't have to wear tzitzit if you're not wearing a four-cornered cloak. And it could be that maybe not everybody was keeping those mitzvot either. And that these are mitzvot that people weren't so careful about keeping, as we have two tracks. Either people weren't doing them at all and these rabbis were doing it, or they did it in an extra way. They did it, Sudah Shlishit is easy. They were very careful about it. We saw that story at the end about the person who his tzitzit ripped and he wouldn't move until he fixed it. So two tracks about how to read it. And I just want to review, because someone asked me this and I realized maybe, sometimes I say things, but if I say it only once, maybe you don't remember. And since we're dealing with this whole chapter about fires on Shabbat, so I just want to review a little bit, maybe also you missed that shiur. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the fire on Shabbat here, because this is an issue that bothers many of us. How could you not put out a fire on Shabbat? So I just wanted to go back and review a little bit about what we said in the beginning, and maybe add something that actually came up in the Zoom after class one day, which not everybody obviously got to hear, which is that the whole idea here is very strange. We're talking about a fire breaking out on Shabbat that it's not a situation where there's anyone's life is in danger. So again, we talked about nowadays, probably any fire would be sakanat nefashot, pikuach nefesh, there would be danger to people's lives, in which case all these laws are not really relevant. You're allowed to put out a fire in those scenarios. So what's the idea here? If the Gemara is only talking about a fire where there isn't pikuach nefesh, so were there fires in those days that weren't pikuach nefesh? Could it be? So again, we talked about maybe you're stuck on a desert island, or you're not even stuck, but you're living out in the desert, or you're living in a place where there's just not a lot of people around. Every once in a while you go up to the areas in the mountains and you'll see a random house, and theoretically something like that. But even that is hard to imagine, because we talk about all sorts of things about Reshut Rabim and Reshut Yachid. It seems like most people are living in communities and they're not living out in the boondocks. So what exactly is going on here? So either you say somehow there was some situations and that's what they were referring to, or you can say that maybe a lot of this is theoretical and they want to talk about the concept. They want to get you into the concept of teach you. Adam bahul mamono, people are scared of losing their money, and what do we do as a result of that? And how does that affect halacha, in the sense that in this theoretical scenario, this is what we're concerned about. And there's a bunch of theoretical issues that come up because of that. And what about kiboy? Is it malach she'en tzricha legufa or not? And if you're putting it out, maybe part of it is just to learn more Torah and think about the concepts, which many times we have theoretical discussions. And it could be also that in addition to gaining that, and this is why I wanted to point it out today, it wanted to tell you a list of hierarchy of what are the things of what of our possessions are the most important. We started with Kitvei Kodesh, sacred texts, right? We have lots of books in our houses, but the sanctified ones, the Sifrei Kodesh, are the most important. We have a lot of food in our house, but what we need for 3 meals on Shabbat, that's what's important. And also, and how the food on Shabbat, and that's really going to be today's daf, is different from food during the week. And this idea about, if you want to look, it's kind of a way of saying, okay, well, look at all the possessions in your house, and if we had to categorize them and what's more significant and what's not, let's take things that are, books or general categories, but there's books that are sanctified, there's books that aren't. Food is a general thing, but there's food that's more important than other food. And it gets into, in addition to creating this hierarchy, it also gets into laws about, can you do things on Shabbat for after Shabbat, right? What are you allowed to do on Shabbat? You're only allowed to save the food you need for that Shabbat, not for after Shabbat. So it may be that part of this is just a theoretical discussion to get into all sorts of other things. And that's why the Gemara specifically went off on this long tangent about Shalosh Sudot. If we hadn't had this Mishnah, there's no other mention of Sudash Lishit, really, as far as I remember. This is the main mention of Sudash Lishit. So since we got to talking about, well, you save a fire 3 meals, from there we got to talking about Shalosh Sudot on Shabbat. Okay, so continuing, now that was just the intro to today, continuing with this list of different rabbis who said, I should be rewarded because I do the following thing. First of all, it's a little bit arrogant that they're saying this, but again, I think they're saying this. There's always this issue with a leader, finding a fine balance between being arrogant and yet also telling people that this is important. And this is the way they told people, take this seriously. Amar Rava. So Rava says, top of Kuf Yutet, Titi li dechi'at atzurva merabanan lekamai ledina. When rabbis come before me in judgment, Lo mizigna reshe abe sadye. I don't put my head down on my pillow. In other words, I don't sleep. Until I've tried to find every possible way to make him exempt, to find, to rule in his favor. Now, this sounds strange because on the one hand, it's favoring Talmidei Chachamim. On the other hand, what he's saying is, and we saw this the other day, the Talmidei Chachamim, generally we assume that they're reliable, that they're honest. We saw you can return lost items to them without giving simanim. If they say, oh, that's mine, we trust them. So here also, since we trust them, he said, I don't put my head down on my pillow until I make sure I've done everything to try to rule in their favor. Amar Marbar of Ashi, obviously it doesn't mean I rule in their favor if I don't find a reason. I try to find a reason. If not, then I don't, but I try. Amar Marbar of Ashi, he says something a little bit in the opposite direction. Psiona le letzorva merabana ledina. I refuse to judge Talmidei Chachamim. Why? My time dechaviv alai kigufai, because I love them as if they're myself. Ve'ein adam ro'echov halatzmo, and since I generally won't think of myself as doing something bad. Therefore, I know I'm going to be partial to them, and therefore I don't even allow myself to judge them. Rabbi Chanina me'ate pekai apanya demale shabta. He would get dressed, wrap himself, and then stand up as Shabbat would come in. Amar bo netzeh likrat Shabbat Amalka. Let us greet the Shabbat queen. This is, by the way, when they decide to establish Kabbalat Shabbat in Tzfat in the 1500s, they based Kabbalat Shabbat on this. This is why it's called likrat, right? To go greet the Shabbat Malka. We'll see in another minute something else. Rabbi Yanai lavish mane male shabta. He got dressed, and both of these people put on nicer clothing. Va'amar boi chala, which comes from Kabbalat Shabbat. They use this boi kala in Lechadodi. Comes from here. Rabba Barav Huna ikla lebe Rabba Barav Nachman krivu leitzlat save tachye. He would bring 3 oiled. He brought out. Let me just tell you the story. So Rabba Barav Huna comes to the house of Rabba Barav Rav Nachman, and he brings him out. And the host there brings him these 3 oiled biscuits. Amarle miava yadita deatina. Hey, I just showed up unexpectedly. Did you know I was coming, that you made all this nice food? Amrule, so here's the great response, a bit of insult. Mia difat lamina, what, you think you're greater than Shabbat? I didn't know you were coming. I was making this for Shabbat. You happened to show up, so I gave you some nice food. But, it was really for Shabbat. I didn't do this for you. Rabbi Abba Zavin Tleisar Astir, we're now having a list of all sorts of things that rabbis did, lichvod Shabbat. So it started with the food the clothing and going out to greet Shabbat. Now we're moving into making nice food for Shabbat. Rabbi Abba, what would he do? Zavim b'tleisar istire pshite bisra mitleitar tabache. He would take 13 istirim pshutim. This is a type of coin. So that amount worth of basar, of meat, he would buy from 13 different butchers. Okay, he wanted to make sure he got the best cut, so he went to all different butchers to get the meat. Umashlim luhu atzinora dedasha. He would leave it at his doorstep. He would go to the store, buy the meat, leave it at his doorstep. V'amar luhu, and say to his family members, Ashur haya, I'm running out to get more. So he would basically run to his house, leave it, go back, buy another piece of meat from a different store. I guess he didn't have a good way to carry lots of things, so he went back and forth. Right nowadays, we'd go from store to store to store to store, or maybe also the meat would spoil on the way. So anyway, he would do this. It's describing how much he cared about making Shabbat nice. Rabbi Avahu have a yativ atachta deshena. he would sit in an ivory chair, which is obviously an expensive chair, umoshif nura, and he would fan the fire, okay, for the food on Shabbat. So he would get involved, but he would do this on this nice fancy chair as a way of respecting Shabbat. And it seems like this next opinion is a little bit against him. Rav Anan lavish gudna. He would wear black clothes on Shabbat. Okay, on Friday. On Friday. On Friday, he would wear his worst clothes, not sit on a fancy ivory chair. He would specifically wear the ugly black clothes because he knew that he was going to stain his clothing from cooking, right? Often we get dressed on Friday morning in the least fancy clothes because we know we're going to be in the kitchen. The Tana de Rabbi Yishmael, and he quotes the source of Rabbi, or the Gemara quotes, just like the Tana in the house of Rabbi Yishmael said, we saw this already, Begadim shebishel bahem k'tera l'rabo, al yimzog bahem kos l'rabo. You don't wear the same clothes for cooking that you wear for serving your rabbi. Rav Safra Machrich Reisha, he would, okay, now, if you remember, the women were the ones generally involved in the cooking. And here we're going to see that for Shabbat, the rabbis themselves got involved in the cooking. So he would roast a head of an animal. Rava Malach Shibuta, he would salt the fish. It was a big fish called the Shibuta. We've seen a bunch of times. Rav Huna Madlik Shrage, he would light candles in his house. Rav Papa Gadil Ptilata, he would set up the wicks. Rav Chista Parim Silka, he would cut up the beets. Rav for Rav Yosef Mitzalchet Sive, they would chop up wood. Rabbi Zera Mitzatet Tzitute, he would light up the fire with twigs. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Mechatef Ayam Mechatef Nafik, he would put stuff on, he would carry loads here and put them in. He would take them out and put them in. Not clear what exactly he's carrying, but he would move things around to get them where they needed to be. Amar, he would say, Ilu Mekalan Rabbi Ami for Rabbi Asi, Milo Machatvina Kamayu. If Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi would have come to my house, wouldn't I be doing this for them? This is like the story we saw before about the different, you made all this nice food for me, right, for a rabbi coming. So he said, right there it started with the rabbi said, aren't you making this for me? And he said, I'm making it for Shabbat. So here he's saying the same thing in the reverse. If these two rabbis, Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Asi would come to me, of course I would be moving things around, right? I bring chairs, I bring tables, I bring this. So of course I'm going to do this for Shabbat. Iga de Amre, some people have the version that it wasn't Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, it was Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Asi, who were Mechatve Va'ayle, Mechatve Benafke. They were carrying all these burdens around on their shoulders. Amre ilu iklam lan Rabbi Yochanan milo machatvinan kameh. And then they said it was, if Rabbi Yochanan would appear at our house, wouldn't we be doing this? So all the more so for Shabbat. So it's just a matter of who the characters were in the story. Now we get to a famous story of Yosef Mokir Shabbat, if you remember that story. So Yosef Mokir Shabbat Hava. And it doesn't call him Yosef Mokir Shabbat. There's some different versions of this story. This is the version we have here. So he was Mokir Shabbat. What does that mean? He made Shabbat special. How so? We're going to see. Hahu nochri b'shivavuta. Havahu nochri b'shivavuta d'ave nefishe nichse tuva. It was a very wealthy non-Jew in his neighborhood who had a lot of money. Amrele Kaldai, the Chaldeim, those are the people who read the stars, the astrologers, said to him, Kulu nichse Yosef Mokir Shabbat achiluhu. All of your possessions will be eaten up by Yosef Mokir Shabbat. Azel zavninu lekule nichse. So what did he do? He sold all his possessions, zavan behu marganita, and he bought one big pearl with it. He figured if I keep it all in this pearl, what will I do with this pearl? Otve b'saine. He put it in his hat. Figured he sealed it in his hat. That way I won't lose it. But of course, what happens? Bahade de ka'avar mivra. As he was going over a bridge, afra chezika, a wind came. Shadye b'mayet, blew his hat into the water. Bale kavra, and a fish swallowed it up. Askua aite apanya demale shabta. They now caught this fish and it comes in right before Shabbat. They say, Amre, man zavin kiyashta. Who on earth is going to be out in the makolet buying food right out in the shuk right before Shabbat? Most of us make sure to buy our stuff before Shabbat. We're not right before Shabbat about to buy food. And everyone's already made their food. Who on earth is going to buy this? Amr lehu, they said to the people who caught the fish, Zilu amchu legabe Yosef Mokir Shabe, the ragil dezavin. He's the guy who'll buy your fish. If you say, oh, I got a great fish, he'll buy it even if it's right before Shabbat. So they bring it to him, Zavne Kare, so they cut it up, Eshkach Ba Marganita, and he finds this big pearl. Zavne Betlesar Ilita Didinare de Dava, and he sold it for 13 vessels full of gold dinarim. Pagabo Husaba, an elderly gentleman meets him. Sometimes a Husaba is a reference to Eliyahu Navi. Amar, and he said, Mandi Yazif Shabta, the one who borrows money to have food for Shabbat. And this is when you first hear. We didn't really hear, even though when I was told this story, he was this very poor man, and his wife was always upset with him. He was spending all the money on Shabbat. Right? Depends how much you elaborate on the story. But clearly it seems he must have borrowed money in order to buy all this food for Shabbat. Para'e Shabta. Shabbat will pay you back. Okay, that you're keeping it. Well, this is a good way of saying. We're going to see today a lot of you will be rewarded, just like we saw yesterday. You will be rewarded if you make nice food on Shabbat. And we're going to get to the reverse, which is if you don't keep Shabbat nicely, then you'll get punished. And we'll end today with the punishments, and we're going to get to even why was Jerusalem destroyed. Okay, not just individual punishments, but the communal punishment. Okay, moving on. So Rebbe asked Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi the following question. The wealthy people in Israel, what did they do to deserve their wealth? This is a play on words in Hebrew. Ashirim is with a shin and ma'asrin is with a sin. The people who give to the Leviim and the Kohanim, the Trumot and the Maschot. Shenemar aser to aser. It says you're supposed to take a tenth of your possessions. Why does it say it in double? Aser te aser. Aser b'shvil shetit asher. It's a play on words. Give ma'aschot so that you will become wealthy. That's in Eretz Yisrael. But now let's move to Chutz La'aretz. Now in the world of the rabbis, there's three places in the world. There's Eretz Yisrael, there's Bavel, and then there's everywhere else. Okay, Bavel is not like Chutz La'aretz. Bavel is something else. Okay, sometimes it has laws even like Israel because Bavel is so special, and that's where it was their center. And for them, it was kind of the replacement of Israel in the Galut. And then there's everything else. So they're gonna categorize. So first we start with the people in Israel, then we're gonna have the people in Babylonia, then we're gonna have the people everywhere else. So the people in Israel, it's because of the mitzvot hatliyot ba'aretz and that they give this maser. But in Bavel, they can't do this because there is no mitzvah to give masrot. So shebebavel b'meim zochim, amar lei b'shvil shemechabdim et haTorah. Right? What's Bavel known for? It's the central place of Torah learning. So because they respect Torah in Bavel, that's why they get it. So that's why you become wealthy. Even though obviously, right, we all know that there's many wealthy people who aren't learning Torah. There's a lot of people who learn Torah who aren't wealthy. Likewise, there's people who give Trumot and Masrot and aren't wealthy. But this is a way of saying, again, it's the rabbi's way of saying, you will get your reward, even if you don't necessarily, but they like to encourage people. And they say that. So now, what about those people? So they're mechabdim Torah. What about other places? B'meim zochim. Now we know why this came up here, because they're mechabed Shabbat in other places, and therefore they get rewarded. To Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Pamachad, it's the same idea as the Yosef Mokir Shabbat story, that if you spend money on Shabbat, you will get rewarded in wealth. I was once in a place in Ludkia, and I went to there, and what happened? They brought before me a shulchan shel zahav, masui shishasar b'nei adam. Obviously a bit exaggerated, but it was so heavy, this golden table, you needed 16 people to carry it, okay? Meaning I was at a super wealthy person's house in Chutz La'aretz. There were 16 shalshalot, I'm not sure what it is, but something of gold, of silver in the table. And there were cups and glasses and flasks and ladles and pitchers, and everything was kind of set into the table. Va'alav, and as every day this was on the table. Va'alav kol minei ma'achal v'kol minei mekadim. There was so much food and delicacies, ubesamim and spices. Ukeshemenichim oto omrim, and when they would put everything on the table. Now there's two kinds of, categories of wealthy people here. So now this person had very strong recognition of God's hand in his wealth. So they would say, La Hashem ha'aretz umlo'ah, the world, right, the land belongs to God. Ukeshemisalkino to omrim hashamayim, shamayim la Hashem va'aretz natan livnei adam. Right, the heavens are for God and the land was given to the people, meaning I view this as a gift from God. Amarti lo, banai, b'mezachita lekach. So I said, wow, how did you get all this wealth, right? What did you do that made you worthy? Amar lo katsav hayiti, I was a butcher. Umikol behema shayta na'a amarti zo tehei l'Shabbat. Every time I found a nice animal, I saved it for Shabbat. Amarti lo ashrecha shezakchita ubaruch hamakom shezichecha lekach. So I said to him, right, ashrecha, how great is it for you that you were zoche, and blessed is God that he rewarded you for this. And maybe this is a recognition that not everybody always gets rewarded. Many people might do this and not get rewarded, but Baruch Hashem, that in this case, he rewarded you for doing this. By the way, the sharshalaot is like sharshalaot chains. I was thinking it said was sharshalaot, but I wasn't sure exactly how there's chains in the table, but I guess somehow there's, not sure what the chains are for, but there's chains. Amar le Kesar le Rabbi Yoshua ben Chananya. This is probably something you've heard in some other form, or some maybe this form. The Kesar, the Roman emperor, says to Rabbi Yoshua ben Chananya, Mipnei matav shil Shabbat rechono def. Why is the fragrance of the Shabbat food so? Why is it such a great fragrance? Amar lo tavlin echad yesh lanu. We have a tavlin, a special spice, the shevet shmo, and it's called, or Shabbat shmo, it's called Shabbat, which is a play on words. There's a spice called, the spice we know, dill, and it's called shevet or Shabbat. And it's also a play on the word Shabbat, right? It sounds like we have a spice called Shabbat. Sha'anu mitilin letocho. We put this special spice in, b'rechono def, and it has this beautiful fragrance. Amar lo tein lanu hemenu. He says, we want some of this beautiful spice you have. So here's his famous answer. Amar lo kol ha'meshamer et haShabbat mo'il lo, ve'she'eino meshamer et haShabbat eino mo'il lo. It only works in the food if you keep Shabbat. If you don't keep Shabbat, the spice doesn't work. It's like the cholent, it only tastes good on Shabbat, right? There's that, people always talk about that. Amar le Reish Galuta le Rav Hamnuna, mai dichtiv u'lekdosh Hashem mechubad. Now the Reish Galuta says to Rav Hamnuna, explain to me this pasuk. This is the verse we saw before about the pasuk about the karata l'Shabbat oneg. You should call Shabbat oneg in Yeshayahu, where we talked about all the things you're supposed to do on Shabbat, wear different clothing, walk differently, speak differently. So it says karata l'Shabbat oneg u'lekadosh Hashem mechubad. Now, if you look at that pasuk, at a simple reading, it says Shabbat should be called oneg, meaning you should treat Shabbat with oneg, which we talked about food and all that. And the kadosh Hashem, the day that's sanctified to God, should be mechubad. Now, that sounds like something different from Shabbat, because Shabbat was in the first part. This sounds like kadosh Hashem is something else. So what day could that be? What does it mean? Amar le ze Yom Kippurim. He says, now we're talking about what's a sanctified day. It's not Shabbat. Must be Yom Kippurim. That's the next in the list of sanctified days. She'ein bo lo achila velo shtiya, and yet amra Torah ki badito b'chsut nikiyah. You can't treat it with kavod by giving food and drink because it's Yom Kippur. But what do? You wear nice clothing on Yom Kippur. B'chi badito. What is b'chi badito me'asot rachecha? That's the continuation of that pasuk. We're back to Shabbat now. Rav amar lahakdim u'Shmuel amar la'acher. Two different opinions. Should you eat your meal? One says eat your meal earlier than usual. One says eat your meal later than usual. Each saw that as a type of respect for the day, either making your meal later or making it earlier. I think making it earlier is we want to have the meal already. Making it later, maybe so that you're hungrier for your meal. Amrule b'nei Rav Papa bar Abaye le Rav Papa. So the sons of Rav Papa said, bar Abba said to Rav Papa, Kigon anan. What about us? We're wealthy. We have wine and meat every single meal. So, how are we going to make Shabbat different? This is classic, right? You have people who wine and dine every night. So, what are you going to do if on Shabbat, if you wine and dine every night, how are you going to make Shabbat different? Amarlo, iragli tulach dume. If you normally eat early, ichrua, make your meal later. Iragli tulach rua akdume. So, he takes both these opinions and kind of says, depending on what you normally do it differently. Rav Sheshet Bekita motivlu l'Rabbanan hecha dematye shimsha. Sifta motiv l'Rabbanan hecha dematye tula. When he would teach them on Shabbat and it was time for the meals, what would he do? He would teach them in the summer in the sun so that they would be uncomfortable and want to finish learning and move to eat. And in the winter, he would do it in the shade, which is not where they wanted to be, and it would be cold. The whole idea was not to get too carried away with learning so that they wouldn't eat. This is the exact opposite of the approach we said yesterday about the Avut Ham, who says specifically you're supposed to be spending most of your day learning and not eating so much. He would basically do the opposite, and he wanted them not to learn so much, he'd make it uncomfortable for them. I'm not exactly sure why he didn't just stop the shiur at a certain point, right? If he's the one leading the shiur, why it wasn't like that? Because it even says, Rashi says, when he was doresh b'Shabbat, he would do it that way so that they would, I guess the idea is sometimes when the shiur ends, people hang around and mill about, and he wanted them, when the shiur was over, to quickly go in and eat, and therefore he did it in an uncomfortable position. I see someone wrote me that the temperature helper of Shesha know what time it was because he was blind. That's interesting. Okay, I didn't see that, but maybe that also is a reason. But here it says, Kihecha de likume haya, so that he would get up quickly. Rabbi Chia Mahader Azuze Zuze de Rabbanan. He would go to all these pairs of rabbis that were learning. Amarle bimtuta minaychu lo techalalune. He would say, please, I beg you, don't be mechalel Shabbat, meaning go eat and go respect Shabbat with eating nice food. Amar Rava v'itema Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, afilu yachid hamitpalel be'erev Shabbat tzarich lomar vayechulu. We're now moving on to a different thing, which is when you're davening Friday night, you should, even if you're an individual davening, you should say vayechulu. That's the section we say. It's from the Torah at the end of Maaseh Bereshit, after God created the world. It says vayechulu shamayim va'aretz. We say it in Kiddush also. And God finished creating the world, and then he rested. Ta'amar Rav Hamnuna, kol hamitpalel be'erev Shabbat v'omer vayechulu, ma'aleh lav ha'katuv ki'ilu na'asa shutaf lakadosh baruch hu b'maaseh bereshit. If you say this, it's as if you become a partner with God in the creation of the world. Shneimar vayechulu. Al tikre vayechulu. Don't read it vayechulu. This happens very often. They say change the nikud, the vowels. Don't read it as vayechulu, ela vayechalu. They all finished, not vayechulu that God did, but everyone did. They all finished the work of creation. Amar Rabbi Elazar, minayin shadibur kemaaseh. How do we know that speech is like actions? Okay, this is something we talk about all the time in the Gemara. How important is speech? Is it like actions? Is it not? Sometimes the Gemara says it's not like actions. And it says that speech is weaker than actions. For example, we have lav she'en bo ma'aseh, like something that you do that's a negative prohibition. Normally you get malkot for, but if it doesn't have an action associated with it, like for example, you were just speaking, you don't actually get lashes for it. So there we see it's less significant. But this is saying speech is like actions. Shenema bidvar Hashem shamayim nasu. With the word of God, the heavens were created. Amar Rav Chisda Amar Marukah kol hamitpalel be'erev Shabbat v'yomer vayechulu shnei malachei hasharet hamelavim lo la'adam menichim yideihen al rosho v'omrim lo v'sar avoncha v'chatotecha techupar. Anyone who davens and says vayechulu, two angels will the two angels that are with him. We're going to talk about these two angels. These are the famous angels that we say Shalom Aleichem about. We're going to see in a minute these two angels. So these two angels that are escorting the person will put their hands on his head and say, right, kind of like we give brachot to our children, we put our hands on their head, and they will say, "V'sar avoncha v'chatatecha tekupar," you will be atoned of your sins. This theme keeps coming up. We saw it yesterday with Sudash L'Shit. We saw it a few days before that. Also, I'm blanking, but there was also something that will cause if you say Kiddush on Friday night, it removes the psiya gasa, the arrogance that you had during the week, right? That there's this idea of Shabbat atoning for all sorts of things. Tanya Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda Omer, Shnei malachei hasharet melavin lo la'adam be'erev Shabbat mi beit hakneset lebeito. Because they brought up these angels, this, if you know what they are, they're now telling you, in case you don't know, there's two angels that escort a person home from shul on Friday night. Echad tov ve'echad ra. It's like good cop, bad cop, right? One is good, one is bad. When he gets home, he comes home and he sees everything is set up for Shabbat properly, right? The candles lit, the table's set, and the beds are made. It's interesting. You wouldn't have necessarily thought the bed's being made, but also the bed's made, right? It's like the same way we're all, at least many of us, are very careful that the house might be messy during the week, but on Shabbat, everything is clean, even rooms that you're not going to see while you're, cooking, while you're eating your Shabbat meal. Malach Tov Omer, Yehi Ratzon Shetei LeShabbat Acheret Kach, right? Maybe your will that it will be like this for another week. Umalach Ra Onet Amen, Ba'al Korcho. He has no choice but to answer Amen, because what's he going to say? Be'im Lav, but if he doesn't find things in this state when he gets home, Malach Ra Omer, the bad angel, comes in and says, Yehi Ratzon Shetei LeShabbat Acheret Kach. right? My blessing is, or my curse is that this will be like this another week. Umalach tovo ne'amen ba'al korcho. He has no choice but to answer amen. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Lo'olam yisader adam shulchano be'erev Shabbat, af al pi she'eno tzarich ela l'kezayit. Even if you're not hungry and you're only going to eat a little bit, you should still set up your table nicely, as if you're having a big feast. V'amar Rabbi Chanina, Lo'olam yisader adam shulchano be'motzei Shabbat. Okay, we talked yesterday that there was no reference to Malava Malka. In fact, we saw those sources seem to indicate that the Malava Malka meal was eaten on Shabbat, and they didn't really eat after Shabbat. But here we see the source for Malava Malka. You should always set your table also Motzei Shabbat. Even if you're even just going to eat a kazayit. Chamim b'motzei Shabbat melugma. If you eat hot food on Motzei Shabbat, it's a rifu'ah, it's a cure. It heals you. Pat chama b'motzei Shabbat, hot bread is melugma, is also curing. What's the idea? They're talking about it's very sad when Shabbat ends. Sometimes it's very hard for us. Right? We have to go back to, you always have that feeling, that sinking in feeling of the week is ahead of us, and the burden of the week after the rest of Shabbat. So have hot food, make fresh bread. I don't know who's really going to bother making fresh bread after Shabbat, but make hot food. It'll restore your soul. Rabbi Yavau have avdin leba afuke shabta igla tilta. He would make an egel meshuleshet, which was a very respectful food. Right? He was always seen the best. The third is always the best. We've talked about this before. Have achel mine kuliate. He would just eat the kiliyah, the kidney from it. Ki gadal Avimi bere, when his son Avimi grew up, I guess he wasn't so hungry from Shabbat, so he'd make this whole fancy piece of meat, but he would eat one kidney. So the kid grows up finally, and he asks the question he's been waiting to ask all these years. Amalei, lama lach lafsude kulei. Why are you wasting all this meat? Nishbo kuliyata mimale shabta. He says, why don't we just leave over a kidney from the meat on Erev Shabbat? Shavku, right? Leave that over. We'll get to Shavku in a minute. Why don't we just leave it from Erev Shabbat and eat it Motzei Shabbat? So Shavku, they did it. Va'ata aryeh achle. But a lion came in the meantime before Motzei Shabbat happened and ate the meat. So that's a good reason for why you should start preparing new food on Motzei Shabbat. In my house, it's more that maybe there won't be leftovers from Shabbat. Everyone will eat all the food. I'm not really worried about lions coming. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Kol ha'oneh yehei shmei Rabba mevarach. Okay, now we're moving topics, but it's still within the same topic because we're going to talk about all sorts of things that somebody does that bring you reward. So if you answer yehei shmei Rabba, this is, by the way, one of the sources. There's not a lot of sources for Kaddish in the Gemara. Here's one of them. If you answer yehei shmei Rabba mevarach, b'chol kocho, with all your effort, korin lo gzar dino, a bad decree against you will be repealed. Shenemar. Okay, this is in Shirat Dvorah in Sefer Shoftim when Devorah sings the song after they get saved from Sisra. So it says Bifra Praot, that means when the Puranut, when the bad will be repealed, the bad decree will be repealed. When will that be? When the people come and they volunteer, Berchu Hashem, and they voluntarily bless God. So when they bless God, that's what's going to wipe out the bad decree, and that's where we learn it from. So my time before praot mishum debrachu Hashem, because they bless God. Rabbi Chia bar Abba and Rabbi Yochanan afilu yesh bo shemet shel avodah zara mochalin lo. Even if he has a bit of avodah zara that he worshipped, idol worship, the worst of the worst, he'll still be pardoned. Well, how do we know this? K'tiv hacha before praot, because it talks about getting rid of the puranut, and k'tiv hatam ki paruahu. You see the same root in, where was this? Chet ha'ega. It says about the people, Moshe says, Ki paruahu. I see the people, they're parua, they're wild. And they say even that, the decree they got from there would be repealed here if they answer Yehei Shmei Rabbah with good effort. By the way, this is something, maybe we'll just, an aside, many times when Kaddish happens in shul, people see it as a kind of break and it's a good time to talk. And really answering Amen to Kaddish, we see from here how significant it is. So if this makes you think twice about talking in the middle of Kaddish, right? Really, Kaddish is one of the most important things to answer. And in fact, if you're in the middle of Shemona Esrei, you're supposed to stop davening and listen to Kaddish being said. That's how important it is. As opposed to other times, other things in davening are not as important to answer Amen to. You don't need to stop your Amidah. So just to remember that about how important Kaddish is, and it comes up here. And I don't know if it's because of this, but it's very, very significant to answer Amen to Kaddish. Besides that, it respects the mourners that are saying Kaddish, and it's hard for them when other people are talking. Amar Rish Lakish, Kol ha'oneh amen b'chol kocho, just answering amen with all your effort. Potchim lo sha'arei Gan Eden. The gates to Gan Eden are open for you. Shneamar pitchu sha'arim v'yavo goy tzadik shomer emunim. Al tikrei shomer emunim. Again, we're having one of these al tikrei. Don't read it as shomer emunim. Ela shomrim amen. Okay, this says open the gates and the goy tzadik will come in. Those who shomer emunim, they're faithful. But instead of saying they're faithful, it's those who say amen. My amen, what is amen? Where does the word amen come from? Amar Rabbi Chanina el melech ne'eman. It's abbreviation for God is a God of a faithful God. Amar Rabbi Yehuda bered Rav Shmuel mishmei deraf. Ein hadleika mitzuya ele b'makom sheyesh chilul Shabbat. Now we're getting into the punishments. Okay, until now we've been saying all the good things that will come if you keep Shabbat and if you keep other mitzvot. Now we're moving into the realm of all the bad things that are going to happen to you. So a fire is going to be burn in your house if you're mechalel Shabbat. Okay, specifically a fire on Shabbat is going to come from chilul Shabbat. Now we're going to see shene'emar v'imlo tishmu elai l'kadesh et yom HaShabbat ulevilti seit masaf. You don't listen to me. This is Yirmiyahu. It says if you don't listen to me, you don't keep sanctify the Shabbat, and you don't carry your burdens around. And you carry your burdens around. You don't stop carrying your burdens. V'itzati eish b'sha'areha. I'm going to light up a fire in your house. And it will, really what he's saying is, it will bring the destruction of Yerushalayim. It's not just private homes, okay? What it means here is the whole city is going to be burnt down, which means the Churban is going to come, the destruction. V'lo techaben, it won't go out. So now they darshan this and they say, this is also an allusion to the fact that a fire will burn in your house on Shabbat if you do chilul Shabbat, if you don't keep Shabbat. Because my v'lo tichbeh, what does it mean it won't be able to be put out? What kind of fire can't be put out? We're talking about a time when people won't be able to put it out, which is on Shabbat. So fires will burn in your house on Shabbat, and you won't be able to put them out on Shabbat because you were desecrated the Shabbat. Amar Abaye, and here starts the long list, which is going to lead us to the next Mishnah already, which is bring us up until the next Mishnah, all sorts of reasons why the destruction happened. It all started because of this verse about the fire. And now comes Abaye and he says, Lo chava Yerushalayim ela b'shvil shechililu ba et haShabbat. The reason Yerushalayim was destroyed was because people didn't keep Shabbat. Shene'emar u'mishabtotai ha'elimu enehem va'achel b'tocham. Okay, because they ignored Shabbat, then I started making the destruction within them. So that's his reason. Now we're going to have a list of, count, I listed them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 reasons. Right now, I think there might be another one in tomorrow's daf, I forget, but 8 reasons in today's daf why the destruction happened. The first is chilul Shabbat. Amar Rabbi Avahu, lo chaval Yerushalayim ela b'shvil shebitlu kriyat shema shacharit v'arvit. They didn't say kriyat shema twice a day. Shne'emar, right, which is considered the kabbalat omachut shamayim, accepting the yoke of God upon them. They didn't do that. Well, Churban happened. Shne'emar, how do we know this? Hoy mashkimei basar shechar yirdofu. Right, this is woe to the people. It's in Yeshayahu, who are basically, they wake up early in the morning to drink. Okay, they drink beer and they drink wine. And now, what are you supposed to wake up early in the morning for? Kriyat Shema. That's the first thing you're supposed to do in the morning, right? You're supposed to do it b'shach b'cha, when you wake up. So they learn from here a reference. So hoy mashkimei basar shechar yirdofu uchtiv. Hayak kinor v'navel tov v'chalil v'yein mishtehem v'poal Hashem lo yabitu. In other words, they're busy singing and drinking to in their crazy parties, and they're not looking to the works of God. And that's why I'm going to send them I'm going to exile them. Amarav Hamnuna, Lo charva Yerushalayim ela shebitlu ba tinokot shel beit Rabban. They closed the schools where the students were learning. I was thinking about this with Corona, all the schools closed, right? It's a terrible thing. And obviously we're not doing it for the same reasons that they're talking about, but it's a horrible thing. Like, this is why people are all up in arms, when they want to close schools. It's terrible, right? That's important for sustaining, right? It's interesting because the main, at least in Israel, the main subject of the whole, it shows what I kept noticing in a lot of people is that schools are basically babysitting services. It's all about so the parents can get to work and it's good for the economy. But what this is saying is without the students learning, they're our future. We have no future. If our students aren't learning, we have no future. So this is what Shene'emar, how do we know this? Shfoch al olal bachutz. So now, how do they translate this? Olal b'chutz is a young child outside. So they say, ma ta'am shvoch. What is the reason they're going to be poured out, meaning destruction? Mishum de olal b'chutz, because the children are outside, right? We're developing no future leaders, no future, right? It's destroying the future. Amar Ula, lo chava, we're going to come back to the Tinokot Shel Beit Rabban soon. Ula says, Lo charva Yerushalayim elam b'pnei shelo haya lehem boshet panim ze mizeh. No one was embarrassed about anything. No one, right? It's when you're embarrassed about things, then you don't behave inappropriately. If you have no shame, then you really don't. Then it's really bad. Shneimar hovishu ki to'eva asu. Right? You should be embarrassed because you did terrible things. Gambosh lo yevoshu, and they weren't embarrassed. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Lo charva Yerushalayim elam b'shvil shehushvu katan v'gadol. They had no respect for leaders. They treated leaders like the average person. Shneimar, vayi ka'am ka'kohen. The nation was like the Kohanim. The Kohanim were supposed to be the leaders, but everyone was equal. Nobody was treated differently. Uchtiv batre, and after that it says, Hibok tibok haaretz. The land will become desolate. Amar Berid Rabbi Shimon ben Abba, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Abba, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Lo chava Yerushalayim ela b'shvil shelo hochichu zeh et zeh. There was no rebuking. Nobody rebuked anyone else. Shneimar, hayu sareah ke'elim. They were like rams who didn't find any graze to pass, any place to graze. Right? Where is his head? His head is in the ground. Right? They stuck their heads in the ground and they didn't rebuke each other. They embarrassed the Talmidei, right? They had no respect for Talmidei Chachamim. שנאמר, ויהיו מעליבים במלאכי האלוהים ובוזים דבריו ומתעתעים בנביאיו עד עלות חמת השם בעמו עד לאין מרפא. What does it mean, עד לאין מרפא? Until there's no cure. אמר רב יהודה, אמר רב, כל המבזה תלמיד חכם אין לו רפואה למכתו. If you disgrace a תלמיד חכם, there's no cure for this. You will get punished and there's no way to get out of it. אמר רב יהודה, אמר רב. So the whole pasuk was basically, right, those that put down the malachim of God and his word and his nivi'av. The nivi'av seem to be the Talmidei Chachamim, until the anger of God became like lit up on his nation. Okay, so now we're going to see how we know the nivi'av is the Talmidei Chachamim. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, my dechtiv al tigu b'mishichai u'b'niviyai al tareu. Don't touch my anointed ones and don't do bad to my prophets. Now, normally what will be explained, Mishichai is the ones anointed, those are the kings, and the Nevi'im are the prophets. Normally there's, right, especially in the Tanakh, there's kings and there's prophets. But in the world of the rabbis, there's no kings and there's no prophets. So they want to darshan this to speak to them. So, Al Tigub Mishichai, Elu Tinekot Shel Beit Rabban. These are the young students. Why? Well, first of all, the Kohanim on their first day, they would get anointed. So, it's like they're young and they're on the first day and they're at the beginning of the beginning stage of their learning. Also, children, the parents often put oil on children, baby oil, things like that. So I think it's the concept of that also. And Nevi'ai al tareu elu talmidei chachamim, right? They say they took the place of the prophets. Why? Because the prophets were the connection between God and man. And in Latin, when we have no prophets anymore, it's the talmidei chachamim that are so to speak, closest. Amarish Lakish Mishum Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya. Ein ha'olam etkayem. Here's the famous line you've probably heard. Ela b'shvil hevel tinokot shel Beit Rabban. The world is supported by the words of Torah studied by the young students in schools. Amar Rav Papa Abaye Didi v'didach mai. So here's Rav Papa's reaction. He says, "What do you mean? What about our Divrei Torah? Aren't we important rabbis? What the tinokot shel Beit Rabban are better than us?" He says, "Yes. Amar le'eno domeh hevel sheyesh bo chet lehevel she'ein bo chet." It's not the same. The words of Torah without sins are not the same as people who speak Torah and have sins also. And we have sins. Even to go build a Beit HaMikdash, we don't cancel school. That's how important it is. Again, very hard to learn these lines in the times we're living through. Okay, so either from your fathers or from my fathers. If you don't have young students learning, they destroy this town. Ravina Amar Machriminoto. We put it in Cherem. We excommunicate it. But Amar Rava Lo Chara Yerushalayim. Last one for today. Ela b'shvil shepaskumi mena anshe amana. There aren't people who speak the truth. Shneimar shotetu b'chutzot Yerushalayim uruuna udu bikshu b'rchovatea im timtzu ish oseh mishpat mebakesh amuna ve'eslach la. Right? He says, go around in the streets of Yerushalayim and see if there's somebody. You can find one person who is doing mishpat, right, justice, and is seeking truth, then I will forgive them. And obviously there aren't any. Then the Gemara is going to ask, Ini, are there really none? Even when they were destroying Jerusalem, there were still people who were honest. And now I'm going to stop here because it's a long, long proof, which goes into tomorrow's daf. So see in tomorrow's daf about where they prove that there were Anshe Amanah in Jerusalem. Okay, with this, we'll finish for today. Have a Shabbat Shalom, everybody.